Welcome into Sports Tonight. Bailey Burmaster, Emily Gagnon, and guess what? Football is officially back. The Falcons reporting for training camp earlier in Flowery Branch. What were your first impressions? It's like first day of school vibes.
Yeah, party time. They're excited. Like for me, I always like this day because you'll never see them this happy. I mean, truly, this is when like all the hopes are ahead of them before you get a loss, before you get a win. I mean, they are so hopeful for a good season. So you said it yourself, Calais Campbell, he impressed you.
Yeah, no, you know what I love? I love that all the guys are like, this, I feel 100%. This is the greatest I felt, and I will never feel like this again until once season is over, because that is the grind of football. Talking to Calais Campbell, entering year 6.
Crazy.
Can you imagine
No.
what this game has done to his body? And yet he says he wouldn't have been still playing if he didn't feel like he could keep up. But there were a lot of jokes made of, do any players put canes at your locker? And he's like, no, that would be disrespectful. He had so many good like one-liners today that I just loved, and I thought he was so personable. He said he was excited to just get in the team atmosphere, and he mentioned people sharing snacks.
What did he say his favorite snack was again? I know you asked,
paydays.
right?
Paydays, which
Of
I was
all
like, okay,
snacks.
right.
Yeah.
But he said he kind of likes some gummy situations, and he likes to eat on those whenever he's like, when I was younger, I could eat whatever I wanted, and it didn't matter. Now it
I feel you,
matters.
Calais.
But he gets like that in training camp, where he's just like, I don't care. I need some energy. I need some sugar. So he'll down some food. But lots of excitement. We also talked to Drake London. He was saying that he was ready to take a nap. I was like,
Already?
yeah. I was
We
like,
haven't even started.
correct. And it was what, 9 when we were
Listen,
out there?
youngin, like he's a child. Year 2 for him. You got Calais, like let's go. You're 16. What are we doing here?
What are we doing? We don't want to. We don't need a nap time. They hadn't even practiced yet. They just had to report. No.
No, yeah, and then AJ Terrell and Chris Lindstrom. I liked hearing that Chris had some very complimentary things to say about the quarterback who'll be leading this team, saying that he really likes Desmond Ritter's communication. So to me, that's something that, obviously from an offensive lineman perspective, communication is good.
Yeah.
But he likes the young quarterback's communication.
Yeah, no, as it should. I mean, that's. I'm really interested because I do feel, especially on defense, there are a lot of new faces. And building off what they were able to do last year, what does the team chemistry and the vibe kind of feel like? I think it was Drake London who said that as a team, he feels like they're really humble and hardworking, but they're kind of ready to progress from what they were last season as a team.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have this feeling yet, but I don't think this team has an identity, right?
No.
Like, they're so young and they're just kind of trying to find their way. And for me, that will be interesting to see throughout training camp and even the season, because we won't get that answer right away. Like, who are these Falcons? Who are the 2023 Falcons? And we honestly don't know. I mean, I certainly don't.
No, and I think identity is the right word, and I think a lot of that's built during training camp. And I'm also eager to see, if they do any team bonding things outside of just football and practices and whatnot, to get to know each other better and build that chemistry, because I am a big believer in team camaraderie and chemistry and how that affects the team and makes them better, or sometimes it can make them worse.
I've had 2 people ask me, Bailey, and I'm not putting you on the spot here, but I'm sure you have thoughts, or maybe you don't, ask me about CP, Cordell Patterson. Do I think he'll get cut because of Algier and because Bijan Robinson was drafted? I don't think he will. This is my feeling. I don't think he will. Not only is he a vet and the only old man in that room, in the running backs room, but he doesn't have to just run the ball, because he is so much more than that. He can catch it. There's so many things he can do. I don't think he's going anywhere.
And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm very sure Arthur Smith has talked in depth about these Swiss Army knife players. Why would you get rid of Cordell Patterson when he is that for you? No matter how many of those you have, the more you can have, it's almost the better in my eyes.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I never even took that into consideration, because Scott Pennyman, who comes on with us a lot, our producer, he said, there is no way that they keep this guy. I think he's making something like $5 million this year. He's an old running back, but I'm like, stop looking at him as a running back. because he's the number 3 running back. What number 3 running back in the league is paid $5 million? Well, I don't look at him like that. He's a special teams guy. He holds a record for crying out loud. Catch the ball, run the ball. There's so much more that he can do. Not to mention, Bijan is going to need somebody to groom him. Even if he's like the best back we've ever seen. Let's say he like goes out as the best back the NFL's ever had. He still needs somebody to lead on, and Algier is still too young for that.
Yep. I think we're totally in agreement here. I'd be surprised if CP ends up getting cut. While we were at camp, there was some massive shocking news that kind of came out, and it is that Bronny James, the oldest son of LeBron James, went into cardiac arrest Monday when he was working out at USC. He was in ICU, but now he's in stable condition out of ICU. And I was actually reading that it's the second straight year the Trojans program has had a player suffer cardiac arrest. The family came out and basically thanked USC and their medical staff for responding so urgently. We saw Damar Hamlin go through his situation on Monday Night Football this last football season. He tweeted out to the James family, sending prayers, and said if he could support them in any way, he would. What are your initial thoughts? Bronny is so young.
That's my first thought. I thought, well, first I was like, this can't be right. Like when I saw it, I was like, there's no way. He's a teen. I mean, he's not even 20 years old yet. But you absolutely hate to see news like this, and you don't want to go to like, well, will he ever play again? Because first of all, you care about his like health. Like get healthy, and will you be affected in any kind of way in your day-to-day life? Like forget the playing, but obviously for him as a young man who has aspirations, you have to imagine, again, just as for him, this is a bummer. This really is a bummer.
Well, and it's, are there any type of long-term effects because of this? I think there's so little we know, but it's really scary to see all these young athletes going through cardiac arrest, especially, like you said, make sure he's healthy, but there has been this whole storyline surrounding LeBron James about his future. When will he retire? And he's made it really clear he wants to stay in the league, and he would like to play 1 year with Bronny in the NBA, and then he'll retire. So that's something that everyone's been watching along with. Will LeBron James, retire, et cetera, et cetera. But I was absolutely shocked by this Bronny news when I saw it.
And then, I guess an initial thought of mine also was like, well, is there, again, for somebody so young to suffer something like that, is there like an underlying issue with his heart, right?
Yeah.
Which obviously is awful if that's the case.
Scary.
And I'm not a doctor, so I couldn't even speak to that. But you have to wonder at such a young age why this could happen.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
It's absolutely awful.
Something else that was rather shocking as well, running back Saquon Barkley signed his franchise tag with the Giants. The deal 1 year. Adjusted franchise tag, $10.1 million fully guaranteed with $11 million in incentives. I find this interesting because all these running backs, Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, we're getting on these calls to discuss the state of
Chubby Chub.
where running backs are and are they going to get paid, are they not, and they feel like they're not getting their money. And I was vocal with Scott when we were talking about this that Saquon was one of the guys I did feel like should have been paid. He is the Giants offense and has been for a few years whenever he's healthy. So yeah, it's hard to see that, but I think it's less about these guys that are running backs and more about you have a lot more young running backs and there's a plethora of them, and you've seen, especially like with the Falcons, it can be a team effort at running back, or you can just go and draft a guy. What did you make of him signing his franchise tag?
So I'm with you. Did he deserve it? Yes, in my opinion, absolutely. But I also think he's part of the problem when it comes to health. He's the perfect example of why running backs don't get paid. Because you're amazing, but then you get injured. And then you're amazing, but then you get injured. And they're like, length in the NFL, their length of greatness is just not there. I always like to use Cadillac, Carnell Williams, and Bronny Brown. Both of them drafted in the top 10 years and years ago out of Auburn, and one of them played a little harder than the other. And I'm not talking about effort. I'm talking about like Cadillac would lay his body on the line because that was the kind of running back he was. He didn't care. He played every down like he was going to get injured, or if he was injured, he kept playing, versus Ronnie taking care of his body a little bit better. He was more of a careful back, and he lasted a little longer in the NFL. But those were the days where backs were used, one back was used every down. Now, and Georgia's a perfect example of this, obviously not an NFL team, but Kirby Smart and whoever has been offensive coordinator there in the last few years, they've found ways to use multiple backs and share the carries. And to me, that's where the NFL is going right now, and that will extend careers, and I think it will drive up the price tag. So for me, if I'm a running back, I'm like, hey, how can we get two guys on the roster who really share carries heavily, almost evenly?
Yeah.
And that will, possibly give you a couple of extra years in the NFL, or maybe 3 or 4, like maybe a few. But that position, you just get torn to the ground
It's
every
like
single
the
play.
age-old question: do you pay running backs? Do you not? And there's still a lot of running backs on the market. Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, guys who have really good experience, but it's just how the running back market has shifted. And I mean, this was kind of a concession by Barkley, to sign this and then show up for camp. So it's sitting, you can say one thing, but you're doing the other at the end of the day.
And by the way, Miss Bailey, Barkley drafted in the top 10. The next running back to be drafted in the top 10 was Bijan. So there's comparisons there, and it's interesting because it's like the last time it happened, it was Saquon who was drafted in the top 10. And now Bijan's taking on that, I don't want to say pressure, but it definitely is different when you're a running back drafted in the top 10 nowadays.
Yep, it definitely is. Some other news, Jaylen Brown gets paid. The Celtics have had quite the offseason. I think the shock of Marcus Smart trade to Memphis was massive. They were just going a different direction. He's been a key defensive player for them for so long. And now Jaylen Brown agrees to a record 5-year, $340 million super
Can I hold some?
max extension. That is a berserk amount of money.
And it's all guaranteed. All of it.
Disgusting.
So you're going to get every penny of that. So congratulations. But I was looking at the breakdown, and 2024-2025 season, $52 million. And then you go all the way to his last season, 2028 and 2029, you're making $69 million that season.
That's wild.
Like crazy. And he's from here. So he went to Wheeler High School in Marietta. People love him around here. And I think people were hoping that the Hawks would somehow be able to get him.
I don't think they have the financials to
Oh,
get
well, they
that
do
figure.
not have $304 million, that's for sure. But good for him. I don't know that I'm not like an NBA guru to the fact where I'd say I know I stick strongly to what I'm about to say, but I don't know if he's worth the most expensive contract in NBA history. No other player's ever been paid this kind of money, but it will happen after him. That he's just the first.
For sure. I mean, it's a domino effect, right? It's kind of, there's a couple players I can name that I think deserve that money before maybe he does, if we're talking just talent-wise. But, good for him. Obviously, they see him and Tatum as, the
Wait
pillars.
till Tatum gets paid, Bailey.
That's what I'm saying.
If he's $304 million, Tatum's got to make more than that.
That's the wild thing, and clearly those are the two pillars of their team right now.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I think there will be some growing pains with the Celtics of just new faces, new team dynamic, especially with Marcus Smart no longer there. I've talked to quite a bit of Celtic fans who didn't like that, but they also understand the move. So I think it will be interesting come playoffs next year to see where Boston is and how they look.
And what Boston did with those two guys is kind of interesting, and I say that because DeJounte Murray with Trey. DeJounte, during a press conference, said, me and Trey want to be like Tatum and Jaylen. That is what we want to do. That's who we want to be like. And it took them a while, and I'm not talking about DeJounte and Trey, I'm talking about the two Boston men. It took them a while to get along, and not in the sense that they were disagreeing off the court, but to learn each other's chemistry on the court and be able to be good running mates. And DeJounte would go back to that and say those are the two guys we're kind of trying to mirror, which I find interesting. And both of those guys are, right, Jaylen Brown just got paid, but Tatum is a gonna get paid at some point.
Well, and you have to think definitely in the playoffs too. Like if that's how they're talking about things, they're also watching how Tatum and Brown play with each other along in the playoffs. Because something I think that has become a discussion, especially at this recent playoffs for the NBA, is that does the regular season really matter? Because once you get to the playoffs, what are you doing in the playoffs? And I mean, you saw that with the Cavs, who were owned by the Knicks, who weren't even that great of a team. But it also was a caveat because you have the Heat making the run. But I just think it's going to be interesting to see how the Hawks progress, especially if that's how DeJounte Murray and Trae Young are looking to kind of become a tandem of such as well.
Right. No, we shall see.
We shall see. Emily, what's on your mind today?
Chris Lindstrom. I love that he talked about getting married this offseason. I know you heard him say that.
Yeah,
we
I
were
did.
both there. It was so cute. He said he had been engaged to his girlfriend, now, fiance, then wife, for 2 years. It happened, during COVID, I think he said.
Mm-hmm.
And so congratulations to him. He's like one of the most quiet men in that locker room, which you probably gathered today. And he's just a good dude, one of the best at his position in the NFL. People don't give him enough credit, but he always gets one of the highest ratings at guard. I mean, he does a heck of a job. So while everybody else was letting Matt Ryan fall to the floor, he was not. And so, but congratulations to him and his wife, and what a great life. You are doing well in the NFL. You get to get married during the off season, and now the fun starts.
Did we get to hear where he went on his honeymoon to?
I didn't
don't
hear
remember
that.
I didn't hear it either.
No.
Interesting. We'll have to do some investigative reporting on that. What is on my mind with camp starting tomorrow? So, I've covered the Packers. I've covered the Browns. I'll now cover the Falcons. I'm very excited to see how different teams run their business and how different teams are with the media, because it's been a unique experience, whether covering Aaron Rodgers with the Packers, Deshaun Watson with the Browns, and just how the media is in Cleveland with players, because there seems to be a little bit of tension every now and then. So it's always fun to be in a new city and see how another team operates compared to what you've seen before.
I don't think you'll see much tension. I keep telling you, we're in the South, Bailey.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody's happy here.
Well, and
the questions aren't that hard.
So the big difference is with the Browns.
Did you hear a lot of laughing today?
I did, and it was very conversational and very nice. I'll give you the background here. With Cleveland historically losing, the media can be a little ruthless there, whether it's writers, radio personalities, you name it. And the players, are kind of given the tap of, hey, just stay away from the media, don't say too much, yada, yada, yada. And sometimes those players don't follow it, and they're very vocal about whatever they want to be vocal about. It's just an interesting dynamic in Cleveland. So I will say it was not like that with the Packers. However, you had Aaron Rodgers, who will also say whatever he wants. So
I was like, where are you going with this? I'm
eager to see just how everything's run in Flowery Branch.
Love it. I think you'll love it. And you know what? In a week from now, let's check back in.
We'll check back in. We'll ask that. That will be like one of the topics.
How is business ran in Flowery Branch? Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. And then we'll tell you. All right. Well, training camp gets started tomorrow with practice. We'll have all the latest reports. Make sure to tune in for another edition of Sports Tonight for all the latest.
Thanks, guys.